so much focus recently on the need for FMCGs to become more resilient. For you, what does that term even mean, resilient?
I think it's such an interesting question because I think FMCGs are, by definition, resilient. We have to be in order to feed the world and its ever increasing demands. For our business, fundamentally it's been about vertically integrating our operations. Golden Agri-Resources is or was initially a palm oil plantation company. We've since expanded to cover all aspects of palm-based production from seed to shelf. And so resilience has sort of been built into the DNA of our business over the last decade or so. Right now, that's been a focus on our people and how to make sure that our people are fine. Supply chain, how do we work with suppliers to make sure that they're doing what they need to in this pandemic?
Could you tell us more about how you're managing to improve, hopefully, your business, bearing in mind the lessons you've learned from COVID-19?
Our business kind of sits in this interesting space because palm oil is such a fundamental ingredient in so many things, from noodles, instant noodles, which we sell out of our operation in China, cooking oil, which is a basic in Southeast Asia, through a whole myriad of baked goods, etc. But also it's had a really, palm-based oleochemicals have a really important role to play in personal care and hygiene products. So your hand sanitizers, your personal soaps, those liquid soaps. So we've had a really interesting experience because in many cases through this period, our primary focus has been how to meet the demands of brand manufacturers and retailers who are looking for ingredients to support products that have been in high demand through global lockdowns. So we've heard about all the runs on toilet paper. Well, there's equally been obviously runs on things like hand sanitizers or wet wipes and liquid soaps. And so to be able to respond rapidly to our customers' need to get those ingredients where they need them, when they need them, so that they can cope with end user demand has been kind of a really big challenge for us. And that's been a lot of focus on logistics and distribution.
Global food demand is expected to double by 2050, which is an extraordinary amount. What challenges does that present to you, and how will you respond?
I think it presents an opportunity for the palm oil sector. Whilst we have a terrible name, it is still the most efficient oil per hectare in terms of crop and yield production. And it's also a very versatile commodity. So I mentioned our R&D facility in Maroondah. We can develop products that replace cocoa butters or mimic those mouthfeels for certain kinds of production methods, particularly those people making chocolate here in Asia Pac, where the weather isn't kind to chocolate if you want to keep it from melting in your hand. We're also seeing plant-based innovations in terms of products, and there's an opportunity for palm oil, which carries nutrition and vitamin fortification well, to really add value to food products. So as we look for both more food, but also better food and nutritionally dense food, I think the palm oil sector has a really important role to play there to provide a vehicle to deliver those nutrients to a growing population.
Those plant alternatives, that sounds really interesting. From a consumer's point of view, what might we see on the shelves in years to come?
Oh, I think everything from kind of, obviously we've already seen the sort of beyond meats, impossible foods type applications, and I think we'll see that at an increasing scale and at a more affordable price point, because at the moment that still sits outside of the reach of many people. I think you'll also see, and this is something that we've been working with in our China business alongside our Indonesian food tech developers, is nutritionally valid energy foods, so rethinking energy bars and those kinds of foods. Protein powders obviously been really big in the wellness and lifestyle sort of gym junkie industry. But beyond that, I think we're going to see alternatives to a whole range of products that we've become accustomed to in our diet, where we want to look at less environmentally intensive options to produce the same kind of experience. So dairy alternatives is an obvious choice.
In the news today, the World Health Organization indicated that we may have to live with COVID-19 for 5 years, a much longer expectation than previously thought. What impact will that have on your efforts to innovate and to meet that huge global demand for food?
So I think first and foremost, we have to think about how we care for our people, because I know that many of us are struggling through this period of lockdown, separation, and uncertainty. And from a business perspective, we have an obligation to make sure that we're caring for our people. Beyond that, to answer your bigger question, how do we serve the needs of the world if we are in these more constrained circumstances, from our home offices or bedrooms, whatever it may be? I think it's going to be a lot about rapid uptake of technological advancement and seeing how that can be utilized to minimize risk to people coming into contact with the disease. Ruthless focus on food safety, hygiene, and sanitation is going to be really essential. We see that within our own operations, just anecdotally, since we've been imposing COVID level safety and personal hygiene focus. We've also seen a reduction in days off sick in certain refinery areas, for example, off the back of things like diarrhea or other fevers and temperatures, things that are quite common in the tropics, which are being eliminated by this rigorous focus on personal hygiene, washing hands, etc. And then finally, I think at a global level, there will need to be some kind of recalibration of what wealth and value looks like. We've heard reports, I think this morning, not just about what the WHO is saying, but also about the prospect for significant economic losses and, a shrinkage of global GDP. None of us have an understanding at this point what that's going to mean for everyday lives, and particularly for the poorest amongst us. And we work in some of the poorest rural communities in Indonesia. We have an obligation also to think through how do we create value in those communities so that they also have food security and food safety in a way that we take for granted sitting somewhere like Singapore.